Arthur Pendleton, a man of immense wealth in his late 70s, sat cocooned within his gleaming silver Bentley, his thumb drumming a restless rhythm against the leather-wrapped steering wheel, while the air conditioner whispered a soft, struggling hum against the suffocating Oakhaven heat. A lifetime spent mastering the world of high finance had accustomed Arthur to a universe that bent to his will, but on this day that universe had buckled, leaving him stranded with a uselessly flat tire far from the cool marble and manicured lawns of his sprawling estate on the town's edge. After several futile attempts to summon roadside assistance through a phone with no signal, he exhaled a slow, defeated breath, surrendering to the weight. Just as a flicker of true frustration began to simmer within him, he saw it, a silhouette emerging from the shimmering heat on the road. A young boy, perhaps 13 or 14, clad in a sun-bleached T-shirt and sneakers that had seen better days, approached, his gaze fixed and purposeful. Arthur watched as the boy's eyes scanned the disabled vehicle before offering a polite yet remarkably self-assured nod. "Flat tire, sir?" The boy's voice was clear and steady. "Yes, I have," Arthur heard himself reply, a curious mix of relief and apprehension coloring his tone. "I was hoping to get a bit of assistance, but my phone seems to have abandoned." "Me out here." A small smile touched the boy's lips. "I can help with that," he announced, kneeling beside the wheel without a moment's hesitation. "My grandfather showed me how to change a tire last summer. You got a spare?" Arthur gestured toward the trunk, observing as the boy expertly retrieved the necessary tools. The young man moved with a swift and quiet competence, his hands guided by an innate confidence that felt far beyond his years. As Arthur stood by, a strange and unfamiliar sense of humility began to creep into his consciousness. He felt an urge to offer something, anything, but the boy remained utterly absorbed in his task, his focus absolute. Within minutes, the job was done, the boy wiping his dusty hands on his jeans and stepping back. "All set," he said simply, a small, satisfied smile his only reward. Arthur immediately reached for his wallet, extracting a crisp fold of bills and extending them toward the boy. "Here, please. I truly appreciate your help." But the boy took a deliberate step back, raising a hand in polite refusal. "Thank you, sir, but I don't need anything. I was just happy to help." Stunned, Arthur remained frozen, money still in his outstretched hand, as he watched the boy turn and walk away, disappearing back down the long road. That brief, unexpected interaction had stirred something deep inside him, though he couldn't yet name what it was. Now alone, he slid the bills back into his wallet, climbed back into his car, and watched in the rearview mirror as the boy's figure shrank into the distance. For the remainder of his journey, Arthur's mind kept circling back to the boy. There was a quiet dignity about him, a self-assurance not forged from wealth or privilege, but from something far more profound. That night, seated in the solitude of his opulent home, Arthur found he couldn't shake the image of the boy walking away with nothing more than a smile. He sat in the deep leather armchair of his study, surrounded by towering shelves of books. He never read. The immense room was silent, except for the soft, relentless ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner. His dinner, a perfectly cooked filet mignon with asparagus, sat untouched on a side table. His thoughts were consumed by the boy. Arthur had met thousands of people in his lifetime, partners, employees, investors, and nearly every interaction had been a transaction, a dance of negotiation, favors, and deals. There was always a price, always an expectation. But this boy, this complete stranger, had offered his help for no other reason than pure kindness. He leaned back, taking a slow sip of his scotch, the memory of the boy's confident smile replaying in his mind. He certainly didn't look like someone who had much, Arthur mused. The worn sneakers, the faded shirt, the grime on his hands, it all painted a picture. And yet that boy carried himself with an integrity that seemed all too rare in the world today. The following morning Arthur felt an irresistible pull to find him. He wasn't sure if it was guilt or gratitude or simple curiosity, but a sense of unfinished business propelled him. He found himself driving that same stretch of road, his eyes scanning the landscape for any sign of the boy. Hours slipped by as he stopped at roadside diners and dusty gas stations, asking anyone who would listen if they had seen a young man matching the description. Most offered only shrugs or blank stares, until finally a woman with kind eyes behind the counter of a small cafe spoke up. "Sounds like you're looking for Leo," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "That boy is always helping folks around these parts. Lives with his mom over in Cedar Creek." Cedar Creek, Arthur repeated, the name lodging itself in his mind. "Thank you." The town of Cedar Creek was an hour's drive, nestled deep in the rolling foothills. The scenery was beautiful, but Arthur barely registered it. His mind was a storm of questions. What kind of life did this boy lead? What kind of family could raise such a person? When he arrived in Cedar Creek, he found quiet streets lined with modest homes and small storefronts. He asked a few locals for directions to Leo's home and was soon pointed toward a small house at the edge of town. The house was weathered but neat, with a front porch that seemed to sigh under its own weight. Arthur parked his car, and for a moment he hesitated, unsure of what he would even say. Taking a deep breath, he walked up and knocked on the door. It opened a moment later to reveal a woman in her early 40s. She looked weary, but her eyes were sharp and kind as they took his measure. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice gentle. "Good morning," Arthur began, clearing his throat. "I'm terribly sorry to bother you, but I believe I met your son yesterday. Leo? He helped me with a flat tire." Her expression instantly softened, a small, knowing smile gracing her lips. "That certainly sounds like my Leo," she said. "He's always out helping someone." "I just wanted to properly thank him," Arthur explained. "He wouldn't take anything from me yesterday." She nodded understandingly, stepping aside to welcome him in. "He's out back. Feel free to wait." Arthur stepped inside, absorbing the humble surroundings. The furniture was old but immaculately clean, the walls decorated with family photographs and crayon drawings that must have been Leo's from a much younger age. It was a universe away from his own home, with its cold, pristine surfaces and abstract art. Yet there was a warmth here, a feeling of life that his mansion sorely lacked. He followed her through to the backyard, where Leo was busy mending a section of the fence. The boy looked up, his eyes widening in surprise when he saw Arthur. "Hey, mister," Leo said, wiping his hands on his jeans. "What brings you out here?" Arthur smiled, feeling an unexpected wave of nervousness. "I wanted to thank you again. You really helped me out of a bind, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it." Leo just shrugged, his expression easy and open. It was no big deal. But to Arthur, it was a very big deal, and he was determined to make that clear. Leo leaned against the rickety fence, his curious gaze resting on Arthur for a silent moment. The boy's calm presence made Arthur feel strangely out of place, as if he were the one being evaluated. "I don't think you understand what a big deal it was," Arthur finally said, his voice earnest. "People don't just help strangers anymore without expecting something back." Leo tilted his head, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. "I don't see it that way," he replied simply. "If someone needs help, and I can help them, why wouldn't I?" Arthur was struck by the profound simplicity of the boy's worldview. He looked past Leo at the yard. The fence was a patchwork of mismatched lumber. The grass was thin and uneven. Behind the house, an old swing set listed to one side, its chains rusted and broken. It was painfully clear that Leo's family had very little, but it was just as clear that they made the most of what they had. "You have a good head on your shoulders," Arthur said, and he meant it. "Your mother must be very proud." Leo grinned, glancing back toward the house. "She works hard. I just try to do my part." Arthur fell quiet for a moment, letting the boy's words sink in. He thought of his own upbringing in a house much like this one. His own parents had worked tirelessly just to make ends meet, teaching him the value of hard work and simple decency. Somewhere along the way, he had lost touch with those lessons, swept up in the endless pursuit of wealth and status. Standing in this humble yard, he felt a pang of nostalgia mingled with regret. "I'd like to do something for you and your family," Arthur said at last. Leo straightened up, his expression turning cautious. "We're okay, mister. We don't need anything." "It's not about need," Arthur insisted. "It's about what's right. You did me a good turn, and I would like to return the favor." Before Leo could protest, his mother appeared on the back porch, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Leo, you'd better come in and wash up for lunch," she called out. Then her eyes shifted to Arthur. "Would you care to join us? It's nothing fancy, but you're more than welcome." Arthur hesitated, unused to such spontaneous invitations, but the sincerity in her voice made refusal impossible. "I'd be delighted," he said, following her back into the house. Inside, the small kitchen was filled with the warm aroma of freshly baked bread and roasting vegetables. The table was small and surrounded by mismatched chairs, but it was set with care. Arthur took a seat, feeling acutely out of place in his tailored suit amidst their simple home. Leo washed his hands at the sink and joined them, his easy smile never faltering. As they ate, Arthur found himself completely captivated by their conversation. Leo spoke about his school, his friends, and his dream of one day becoming an engineer. His mother shared stories about their community, speaking with a quiet pride about the way people looked out for each other here. Arthur listened intently, feeling a warmth spread through him that he hadn't experienced in decades. For all his immense wealth, his own home felt cold and hollow compared to this little house so full of laughter and genuine connection. After lunch, as they cleared the table, Arthur turned to Leo's mother. "You've raised a remarkable young man," he said. "He has more character than most men I know." She smiled, her eyes shining with a quiet gratitude. "Thank you. He's a good boy, but we've certainly had our struggles. We've learned to be grateful for the small things." Arthur nodded, his mind already spinning with ideas. He didn't want to impose, but he knew he couldn't just walk away and do nothing. This family had given him a gift he hadn't even realized. He was missing a powerful reminder of what truly mattered in life. Arthur left their home that afternoon with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Driving back to his grand estate, he began to formulate a plan. This wasn't about charity. This was about honoring the boy's selfless act and the family's incredible resilience. Leo and his mother deserved more than a patched-up fence and worn-out furniture. They deserved a foundation of stability, a recognition of the strength they displayed every single day. The next morning, Arthur was on the phone, making calls, dozens of them. He contacted old associates, contractors, and suppliers. By midday, a comprehensive plan was in motion. Within a week, trucks and work crews began to arrive at Leo's small house. Arthur stood on the sidewalk, a clipboard in hand, directing the EOH whirlwind of activity, as Leo and his mother watched in stunned silence. "You didn't have to do all this," Leo's mother said, her voice trembling as she watched a crew unload a stack of new lumber. "We've always managed just fine on our own." Arthur turned to her, his expression deeply earnest. "You've done more than manage. You have triumphed. But you gave me something I didn't even know I had lost. Please let me give something back." Leo was quieter than usual, standing beside his mother with a thoughtful look on his face. Arthur crouched down slightly to meet his gaze. "You taught me a lesson, Leo. Helping people isn't about writing a check, it's about showing up. I just want to show up for you." Over the next several weeks, the little house underwent a stunning transformation. The sagging porch was replaced with sturdy new wood, the leaky roof was repaired, and the rusted swing, set in the backyard, was replaced with a brand new one. Inside, the walls were painted, the floors were polished, and the kitchen was completely upgraded with modern appliances. At first, Leo tried to join in with the renovations, carrying planks of wood and sweeping up debris, but Arthur gently insisted he take a break. "Your only job right now," Arthur said with a warm smile, "is to enjoy being a kid for a while." Even so, Leo couldn't resist sneaking out to watch the crews at work, his eyes bright with curiosity as he observed them measure, cut, and build. One of the workers, a burly man named Frank, noticed his fascination and invited him to help measure some wood planks. Before long, Leo was peppering the crew with questions about tools and techniques, his excitement proving infectious. Arthur watched from a distance, a feeling of warm pride swelling in his chest. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, he felt he was doing something truly meaningful, something that existed beyond himself. The boy's boundless energy reminded him of the ambition he himself had once possessed, before life had become a sterile blur of boardrooms and stock portfolios. One evening, as the sun cast long, golden shadows, the project was finally nearing completion. The family stood together on their new porch, marveling at the change. "This isn't just a house anymore," Leo's mother said, her voice thick with emotion. "It's a real home. I don't know how we can ever possibly thank you." Arthur shook his head, his tone soft and low. "You already have. You reminded me what life is supposed to be about, family connection and having a purpose. I think I'm the one who should be thanking you." The final day of the renovation felt like a true celebration. Neighbors stopped by to admire the changes, offering smiles and small gifts of their own, fresh baked pies, jars of homemade preserves, and even a potted geranium. Leo's laughter was a constant happy sound in the yard as he raced around, showing his friends the new swing set and the freshly painted rooms. Inside, the house, once so tired and worn, now radiated with life and light. Arthur stood on the front porch, leaning against the solid new railing, watching the beautiful scene unfold. He hadn't felt this kind of joy in years, a simple, unfiltered happiness that came from seeing others flourish. Leo's mother came over, a glass of iced tea in her hand. She offered it to him with a grateful smile. "You've done more than fix our house," she said softly. "You've given us a sense of hope. And I think maybe you've found something for yourself, too." Arthur nodded, taking a sip of the cool tea. "I have," he admitted quietly. "I spent so many years chasing things I was told were important, money, status, influence. But none of it ever felt like this. None of it ever filled this emptiness inside me the way this has." As the sun began its final descent, Leo joined them on the porch, his energy still buzzing. He looked up at Arthur, his expression serious and thoughtful. "Mr. Arthur," he began, "I've been thinking a lot about everything you did for us. I want to do something like that for people one day. I want to help people just like you did." Arthur placed a gentle hand on Leo's shoulder, his voice steady and sure. "You already do, Leo. Your kindness is what set all of this in motion. Never, ever lose that." The three of them sat there together, watching the sky bleed from gold into a deep, peaceful orange. The warmth of the day lingered, but it was overshadowed by a deeper warmth, one that came from connection, gratitude, and a shared sense of purpose. When it was finally time for Arthur to leave, Leo and his mother walked him to his Bentley. The boy's wide, beaming grin and his mother's tearful smile were images that Arthur knew would be etched into his memory forever. As he drove away, he understood that this wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of a new chapter in all of their lives. The weeks that followed brought even more changes. Leo's newfound curiosity about construction blossomed into a genuine passion. Arthur arranged for him to spend time shadowing the very workers who had rebuilt his home, and Leo soaked up every ounce of knowledge like a sponge, eager to learn every trade. Arthur, in turn, found himself drawn back to Cedar Creek again and again. Each visit felt less like a trip and more like a homecoming. He was no longer an outsider looking in. He was a part of their lives, a part of something bigger, and for The first time, in more years than he could count, he felt truly content. The story ended right where it had all begun, in a small town with a very big heart, where a single act of kindness from a young boy reminded an old man of life's most profound lesson, that it's not about what you have in this world, but what you give.